Japanese doctor reveals the drink that makes blood sugar disappear, a forgotten drink, an ancient habit, a Japanese doctor, and a revelation that could change forever the way you take care of your health. In this episode, we dive into a universe where tradition and science meet. We discover a simple military practice that challenges common sense and has puzzled researchers, doctors, and patients around the world. You'll understand how small, silent choices made in the kitchen, in your routine, in your body can create deep impacts on your energy, your sleep, your metabolism. We're going to talk about what most people ignore and what your body has been trying to tell you for years. But beware, what will be revealed here cannot be ignored. So get ready to question everything you thought you knew about blood sugar, aging, and vitality, because sometimes the answer you're looking for is in something so simple it seems impossible. So welcome to another episode of Heal Essence, where you'll discover the drink that makes blood sugar disappear with Dr. Hiraka Tanaka. Dr. Hiraka Tanaka. A name that for many might still sound unknown, but for the residents of a small town in southern Japan, he's practically a legend, a doctor with over 30 years of experience in integrative medicine who combines the ancestral wisdom of the East with the latest research from modern science. And it was exactly in one of these unusual fusions that he developed a simple, natural, and surprising recipe. A drink that, according to him and his patients, can help reduce blood sugar levels efficiently. This drink came from observing my oldest patients, especially those living in rural areas of Japan. They rarely showed blood sugar problems, even though they consumed carbohydrates daily. When investigating their habits, I noticed that many of them drank a specific infusion before going to sleep. I decided to study the ingredients and was amazed by the effects on glucose regulation. From there, I formulated a stronger version, combining 3 key elements of Eastern medicine, and that's where it all began. First, the results showed up in the doctor's clinic patients. Then, through word of mouth, the recipe began to spread among communities, gaining space in small local newspapers and, of course, on social media. Today, there are reports from people in other countries, including here in Brazil, claiming to have felt significant changes in their tests after adopting the drink daily. Of course, it's fundamental to make clear that this is not magic. The drink works as support. It helps stabilize blood sugar levels, but needs to be part of a context of healthy habits. It doesn't replace prescribed medication nor dismiss medical monitoring. However, it is indeed a powerful tool, especially for those who are on the edge, with prediabetes or very fluctuating blood sugar tests. And the most curious thing is that despite the reported effectiveness, the ingredients are all simple, nothing industrialized or hard to find. Everything comes from nature. But before revealing exactly what makes up this drink, we'll understand better the background behind it. Why is Japan such a strong reference when it comes to health and longevity? And what can we learn from that? That question is essential, because what works in Japan isn't just a drink or an herb, it's a lifestyle. But there are elements that can indeed be adapted for any culture. And that's where our work comes in, translating Japanese wisdom to the context of those living in Brazil or other parts of the world. Dr. Haruki, there's no way to talk about your drink without mentioning the context in which it was born. Japan is worldwide known for its high life expectancy. In some regions like Okinawa, it's not rare to find people over 100 years old living autonomously and actively. We believe explains this impressive phenomenon. It's a combination of factors. Genetics play a role, but the most impactful is, without doubt, the lifestyle, natural food, light and balanced meals, low consumption of ultra-processed foods. The basis of the traditional Japanese diet is rich in vegetables, seaweed, fish, teas, and small portions of rice. Besides that, there's the habit of eating mindfully and with gratitude, which even influences digestion and metabolism. That's fascinating. And it's not just the food, right? There's a philosophy behind the way they live. Concepts like ikigai, which means life purpose, or hara hachibiyu, meaning stop eating when you're 80% full. These are cultural practices that in some way protect people's health, preventively. Exactly. Hara hashibiyu is one of the biggest secrets of longevity. Eating until almost satisfied, not completely full, avoids pancreas overload and reduces glycemic spikes. And ikigai is directly linked to mental and emotional health. People with a clear purpose tend to have lower inflammation and better metabolic markers. And do you believe this model can be adapted by those living here in Brazil with such a different reality? For sure, of course, you can't copy everything, but some elements can and should be incorporated. For example, cooking at home, using more fresh ingredients, reducing sugar and refined salt, walking more, sleeping well. These are universal actions, and the most important, restoring the connection with the body and the present moment. That's something we learn a lot from Japanese culture, and it seems that this drink you brought is kind of a summary of that philosophy, right? A simple gesture, but full of intention that can transform the routine and deeply impact health. Yes, it's a symbol of an integrated approach. It represents not only the ingredients from Japanese land, but also the patience, the ritual, and the care with the body. That's why it works best when inserted in this context of mindfulness and self-care. Haruki, before we dive into the effects of the drink, I think it's important to take a step back and explain something that seems simple, but many people don't understand well. After all, what is this blood sugar? Is it the same as glucose? Why does it go up and down all the time? That's a great question. What we call blood sugar is nothing more than glucose circulating in the blood. Glucose is a sugar molecule that serves as the main fuel for our body. It mainly comes from carbohydrates we eat, like rice, bread, fruits, pasta. When we digest these foods, glucose is released into the blood, and that's where insulin comes in, right? That famous substance we hear about a lot, especially when the topic is diabetes. Exactly, insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas. Its function is like a key. It opens the doors of the cells so glucose can enter and be used as energy. When this mechanism works well, blood sugar rises a bit after meals and then goes back to normal. The problem is when the body starts resisting insulin, a condition called insulin resistance, and that can happen even without the person being diabetic, right? Many think they only need to worry about blood sugar when they have a diagnosis. Unfortunately, that's a common mistake. Insulin resistance can exist for years without obvious signs. During this time, the body compensates, producing more and more insulin to try to control glucose. But there comes a moment when the system wears out, then come sugar spikes, prediabetes, and eventually type 2 diabetes. So keeping blood sugar levels healthy isn't just about avoiding disease, but also about preserving energy, focus, and disposition. For sure, glucose fluctuations affect mood, sleep, concentration. Many people live with chronic fatigue and don't realize it might be linked to blood sugar deregulation. And worse, when glucose stays high for a long time, even subtly, it causes silent inflammation, premature aging, and damage to blood vessels. That's where we start to understand why this drink you developed can be so important, because it acts right on that point, on balancing glucose, even in those who aren't diabetic yet. But before that, let's explore the real risks of living with unregulated sugar. Even without diagnosis, can we? Of course, that's an essential point. Many people think everything is fine just because the test doesn't show diabetes yet, but the body is already suffering, often silently. Dr. Haruki, what you said at the end of the last chapter made me think. If someone doesn't have a diabetes diagnosis, doesn't feel anything strange in the body, but still lives with slightly elevated blood sugar, can that already cause damage? Is that right? Yes, and that is one of the biggest public health problems today. People think they're on the edge, that the test was just a little high, and that repeats for years. But even moderately elevated glucose levels, when constant, accelerate aging inside the body. They affect blood vessels, overload the liver and pancreas, increase the risk of high blood pressure, fatty liver, and even neurodegenerative diseases. So that feeling of tiredness all day, difficulty concentrating, frequent headaches, can be related to this sugar circulating high, even without a clinical case of diabetes? Exactly. Many patients come to the office with those vague complaints.
Chronic fatigue, feeling heavy, wanting to sleep right after eating. When we do a more detailed exam like glycated hemoglobin or glucose curve, we find glucose has been elevated for months.
That's enough to cause microdamages in the body, especially in blood vessels and nerves. And that helps explain why so many people with high glucose have circulation problems, vision issues, tingling, and hands and feet. Yes, high glucose makes the blood thicker and inflames vessels that harms tissue oxygenation, which affects the retina, kidneys, feet, and even the brain. The body starts sending signals, but since they are subtle, many ignore or normalize these symptoms. The danger is that when damages become visible, the process is already advanced, and this applies to both those with prediabetes and those in the so-called high normal range, right? Yes, studies show people with fasting glucose between 95 and 110 milligrams per deciliter already have a higher cardiovascular and inflammatory risk, even if within the reference range. Ideally, fasting glucose should stay below 90 if possible, but the most important thing is to avoid post-meal spikes. And that's where foods and drinks that help stabilize these levels come in, and the drink you formulated fits exactly as an ally in this scenario, right? Because it doesn't wait for the diagnosis to come. It acts before in preventive care. But before talking about it again, I think it's important to understand what of the silent signs the body gives when sugar is out of control. Can we cover that next? Of course, those are signs many ignore, but they say a lot about what's happening internally. Dr. Haruki, you said something very serious at the end of the last chapter. The body sends warning signs when sugar is deregulated, but most people ignore them. What are these silent signs that often go unnoticed in daily life? There are many, and they usually appear subtly, which makes it easy to blame other factors. One of the most common is persistent fatigue, even after a good night's sleep. Another recurring sign is sleepiness right after meals, especially after eating carbs. That happens because the body is dealing with a glycemic spike, followed by a sharp drop. I know several people who talk about this energy crash after lunch, for example, and they think it's normal, part of everyday life. Exactly. Another symptom few associate with high glucose is increased thirst. The person feels dry mouth all the time, needs to drink more water than usual. It's also common to notice a constant urge to urinate, especially at night. That happens because the body tries to eliminate excess glucose through urine. There's also the issue with skin, right? I've heard doctors say that dark patches on the neck, armpits, and even growing can indicate insulin resistance. Correct. This condition is called acanthosis nigricans. It indicates the body is producing excess insulin, and that affects skin pigmentation. It's an external sign that needs careful investigation. It's also common for a person to gain weight easily, especially in the abdominal region, even while maintaining a seemingly balanced diet. So the belly growing, that difficulty losing weight can also be a reflection of poorly controlled glucose. Without a doubt, excess glucose in the blood is transformed into fat, and the abdominal region is where it accumulates most easily. Also, excess insulin stimulates fat storage. Another important point, many people with elevated glucose have mood changes, like irritability, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, and even memory lapses.
Wow, so the list is, and most of these signs have nothing to do with what we imagine as diabetes symptoms.
It shows how the body speaks, but we haven't learned a lesson right. Exactly. The good news is that by recognizing these early signs and adjusting habits, it's possible to reverse this condition. And one of the strategies gaining strength is the use of natural compounds like the drink we're discussing. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what science has covered about the effects of these ingredients. Dr. Horiki, now that we understand the body signals better and the dangers of high sugar, I think the audience is very curious to know what exactly does this drink do in the body? And more importantly, are there studies proving these effects? Yes, this drink is not just a product of oral tradition. We have scientific support for its main ingredients. They were analyzed separately and together, showing interesting effects in glucose regulation. The first more observed impact is the improvement in insulin sensitivity, meaning the body starts responding better to the hormone that carries glucose into cells. So it means it helps to open the door of the cells more easily. Exactly, and that's one of the biggest challenges in people with insulin resistance. In a study conducted at the University of Tokyo, the compounds in the drink showed reduction of post-meal glucose levels, that spike that happens after eating. In another research done with pre-diabetic patients, there was an average reduction of 12% in fasting glucose after 8 weeks of regular drink use without changing the diet. Does it have any effect on the digestive process? Or does it act more on the bloodstream? It acts on both fronts. One of the main ingredients delays gastric, meaning the food stays longer in the stomach, releasing glucose more slowly. This helps avoid sugar spikes. Also, the bioactive compounds in the drink act on digestive enzymes that break down carbohydrates, which also contributes to a more gradual glucose absorption. It's almost like it teaches the body to deal better with sugar without those harmful ups and downs. That's a good way to put it, and the most interesting part is that being natural, it doesn't force the body, it doesn't cause hypoglycemia, and can be used both by those wanting to prevent and those already with altered levels. We also observed in patients who used the drink at night an improvement in sleep quality and a significant reduction in nighttime hunger attacks. So it not only regulates glycemia, but also affects eating behavior and even sleep. That's way beyond what I imagined. In the next chapter, I want medicinal teas because it feels like there's a very strong cultural base behind it, right? For sure, the tradition of teas in Japan is military, and this drink is born exactly from this wisdom. We'll talk about it calmly, Dr. Horaki. When you talk about this drink, it's impossible not to think about the tea tradition in Japan. We imagine ceremonies, dry leaves with subtle aromas, and a ritual that seems much deeper than just drinking tea. What role does tea play in Eastern medicine? Tea for us is much more than a drink. It represents connection, prevention, and balance. In Eastern medicine, especially Chinese and Japanese, teas have been used for Ganamudia as a way to harmonize the body and treat subtle imbalances before they become diseases. Each plant has a specific energy, some warm, others cool. Some tone organs like the liver and spleen, others act on the digestive system, and so on. It's like each tea has a personality, a specific function in the body. Exactly. For example, we have shiso tea, widely used for digestion and allergies, roasted barley tea, which helps calm the stomach and reduce internal heat, and mulberry leaf tea, which acts on the pancreas in blood medicine treatises. And it's from this base that the logic of the drink we're exploring today was born. In the preparation also seems part of the therapy, right? The act of boiling water, waiting for the infusion, it helps bring a different rhythm to the day. Yes, the ritual is part of the healing. The tea ceremony in Japan is a meditative practice. It's not just about drinking something. It's about being present, breathing, calming the mind. This state directly influences the autonomic nervous system, which in turn affects hormone production and even digestion. So when we say a tea helps regulate glucose, we're not just talking about the plant, but the context in which it's consumed. And this concept is far from the idea we have here in the fortunately, yes. But this view is changing. Today, with the popularization of phytotherapy and studies on bioactive plant compounds, tea is starting to be valued as a true therapeutic agent. In fact, there are universities in Japan studying the effects of certain infusions on metabolism, glycemia, cholesterol, and it seems the drink you develop carries a bit soul of traditional teas, but with a very clear application fighting excess blood sugar. So in the next chapter, I want to start finding out what exactly composes this recipe, without revealing everything yet, of course, but we can start unveiling the main players, right? Yes, it's time to stop talking about the key ingredients and how they act in the body. Let's go, Dr. Horaki. Now that we understand the therapeutic value of tea is an Eastern culture, it's time to open a little the mystery. What are the ingredients that make up this Japanese drink that has helped so many people control their blood sugar? Sure, without revealing everything yet, I can say the drink is made up of three main elements. The first is mulberry leaf, which I already mentioned. It's rich in a compound called 1-deoxynitrosamine, or DN-TRA, which inhibits an enzyme responsible for breaking down carbohydrates in the intestine. Because of this, glucose absorption is slowed down, which prevents post-meal spikes, so helps the body deal better with carbohydrates, slowing their digestion. Exactly. This gives the body more time to produce insulin and process glucose gradually. The second ingredient is azuki bean tea, a very common food in Japan, but little known in the West as a medicinal herb. Its diuretic helps kidney function and also has properties that act directly on improving insulin sensitivity. Interesting. I would never imagine beans in a therapeutic drink, but it makes sense because azuki is light, has a mild flavor, and has been used for centuries in Japanese cuisine. Yes, it's a functional food, especially when transformed into an infusion. The third ingredient is a root called yakan, very rich in soluble fibers, and a type of natural sugar called fructo-oligosaccharide. Yakan feeds the good bacteria in the intestine, improves digestion, and reduces glucose absorption. Also, it has a mild sweet taste that makes the drink more pleasant. So we have here a trio of ingredients working on different fronts: slower digestion, less sugar absorption, and better insulin response. And all this based on plants and natural foods. Yes, that's the power of the formula. Each ingredient has its specific function, but together they create a synergistic effect, and most importantly, all are accessible, don't cause relevant side effects, and can be integrated into the routine easily. But like any natural therapy, the secret is consistency. And now that we have a glimpse of these ingredients, I want to understand better how the drink acts during the night, because many people have glucose spikes while they sleep or wake up tired, even after sleeping well. Let's explore that in the next afternoon. Definitely, the nighttime effect of this drink is one of its most surprising aspects. Dr. Haruki, one thing that caught my attention in what you said earlier was that this drink has a particularly interesting effect during the night. That's curious because many people think the body just shuts off when sleeping, but it's not quite like that, right? Exactly. Sleep is a moment of intense metabolic activity, especially for organs involved in glucose regulation. The liver, for example, continues producing glucose while we sleep in a process called gluconeogenesis. In people with insulin resistance or prediabetes, this production can get out of control, resulting in elevated glucose levels right after waking, something we call morning hyperglycemia. So even without eating anything during the night, glucose can rise on its own. Yes, and this is one of the most neglected factors when we talk about glucose control. The drink acts intelligently at this point. When taken at night, it has three main effects: slows excessive glucose production by the liver, improves insulin sensitivity during rest, and promotes a healthier intestinal environment, which also impacts nighttime metabolism. That explains why so many people report waking up with more energy after a few days of taking the drink. It's not just about sleeping well, but having a more balanced metabolism during the night. Exactly, in many reports I received at the clinic, patients said they had better morning energy, less cravings for sweets during the day, and even reduced anxiety. That happens because the body keeps glucose in a more stable range while the person sleeps, avoiding oscillations that harm sleep quality and activate stress hormones. And it's interesting to think that while the person is sleeping, the body is working silently, and this drink is there helping guide this process naturally. Yes, and that's one of the most beautiful points of Eastern medicine, promoting
Balance without aggression.
not forcing the body, but offering the right elements so it regains its biological intelligence. That's why we recommend the drink be taken about an hour before sleeping with a stomach already lighter to potentiate its effects. And now I want to hear real stories, doctor. People who use this drink and manage to transform their relationship with their own glucose, because nothing inspires more than seeing theory working in practical life. Can we? Of course, there are many moving cases, and some really surprised even me. Dr. Horiki, now I want to hear real-life stories, because until now we talked about studies, tradition, physiology, but what really moves us are reports from people who incorporated this drink into their routine and harvested results. Could you share some cases that marked your path? Sure. I remember Mr. Fujimoto, a 64-year-old farmer in a village north of Kyushu. He came to my office with classic symptoms: extreme tiredness, blurred vision, recent memory loss. His fasting glucose was 32 and glycated hemoglobin was 6.8%, already advanced prediabetes. He didn't want to start medication, preferred to try natural changes first. And did he follow the drink recipe? Yes, I recommended daily use for 30 days, along with simple adjustments: eating dinner earlier, avoiding processed foods, and walking 20 minutes per day. In 6 weeks, fasting glucose dropped to 10.8 and glycated hemoglobin to 6.2%. But the most impressive was the disposition he reported. He said he went back to work with more energy, and his wife commented that he was lighter and more present. Amazing. And all without medication, just accessible changes and a natural drink. Is there any other case you'd like to highlight? Yes, the case of Mrs. Kako, 52 years old, is very special. She's a teacher and lived fighting mood swings and anxiety crises linked to sweet cravings. Even with normal exams, her glucose fluctuated a lot. We introduced the drink early at night every day, and she reported improved sleep and reduced desire to eat sugar after dinner. 2 months later, she lost 4 kilos without effort and began having clearer thinking. These reports show that the benefits go beyond glycemic control. It's like the whole body responds positively. Yes, glucose regulation is a key point for the balance of the whole organism. When you stabilize blood sugar, hormone production improves, inflammation decreases, you sleep better, and think more clearly. All this connects. That's why even being a simple recipe, this drink has such a profound impact. It's the power of simplicity, huh? In the next chapter, I want to understand better how this drink also acts on the organs that process glucose, like the liver and pancreas, because if it helps these organs work better, the effect can be even stronger. You'll be surprised by the detox action it causes, especially in the liver. We'll talk about that next, Dr. Horoki. We hear a lot about detox effect, but often without scientific clarity. In the case of this drink, you mentioned it has an important action on the liver and pancreas, which are exactly the two big protagonists in blood sugar regulation. How does it act on these organs? Excellent question. The term detox has been trivialized, but in Eastern medicine it has a very precise meaning. It's the process of unblocking and regenerating organ functions. The liver, for example, is responsible for metabolizing glucose and turning it into glycogen, a storage form. When the liver is overloaded with toxins, fat, or excess glucose, it loses efficiency, and then glycemic imbalances start. And the pancreas enters the story as the insulin producer. Right, exactly. The pancreas, when sensing the blood glucose increase, secretes insulin. If it's inflamed, intoxicated, or overloaded, this function is compromised. What the drink does, thanks to the natural compounds it contains, is help reduce chronic inflammation in these organs and facilitate the elimination of accumulated toxins. And does this happen through the action of certain ingredients? Do any of them have this more cleansing role? Yes, yacorn is one of the main agents in this regard. Being rich in soluble fibers and prebiotics, it stimulates the growth of beneficial bacteria in the body, has diuretic and antioxidant action, helping excrete toxic metabolites. And mulberry leaf has phenolic compounds that help protect liver cells and improve pancreas sensitivity to glucose. So it's a kind of internal cleaning that helps the body return a functioning as it should without overload. That's an excellent analogy. When the organs are clean and working well, the body responds better to everything, including the insulin it produces itself. That reduces the need for compensatory efforts, like hormonal spikes or excessive fat storage. It's a virtuous cycle of recovery. Are there any tests that show this improvement, or is it something people notice more through symptoms? Both. Many patients show reductions in liver enzymes like AST and ALT after a few weeks, but more commonly they notice symptom improvement, lighter digestion, less bloating, more energy, deeper sleep. The body starts signaling that it's balanced again. Perfect. Now I want to know how to boost this effect, because I imagine there are foods that can be combined with the drink to further enhance its benefits, right? Correct. There are food combinations that act in synergy with the drink's ingredients. We'll talk about that next, Dr. Haruki. After understanding how the drink acts on the liver, pancreas, and even on sleep, I keep wondering, is there a way to make this effect even stronger? Are there foods that, when consumed together or around the same time, can enhance the action of this drink? Absolutely. Nature offers several allies that work in synergy with the ingredients of the drink. The first group is soluble fibers, which help delay glucose absorption. Foods like chia, golden flaxseed, oats, and even psyllium are excellent for this role. When included in meals, especially at dinner, they reduce the speed at which sugar enters the bloodstream. So if someone has dinner including oats and drinks the beverage before sleeping, for example, the body will have much more balanced glycemic response. Exactly. Another powerful group is low glycemic index fruits, such as green apple, pear,
Guava and berries, strawberry, blackberry, blueberry. They provide antioxidants and bioactive compounds that protect blood vessels and modulate insulin response.
A small handful of berries early in the evening, for example, can be an excellent strategy. And what about herbs and spices? Are there any that you recommend combining with the drink? Yes. Cinnamon is one of the most studied in this context. It helps increase insulin sensitivity and reduce post-meal blood sugar. A pinch of cinnamon on fruit, or even in the preparation of yakon, is very welcome. Ginger is also excellent because it has anti-inflammatory action and aids digestion, complementing the effect of the drink. In nuts, I've heard they help control glucose too. Yes, especially Brazil nuts and pecans. They are rich in good fats, magnesium and selenium, nutrients that protect the pancreas and reduce systemic inflammation. Consuming 1 or 2 nuts after dinner helps maintain satiety and stabilize glycemia throughout the night. It's interesting to see that by integrating these simple foods into the routine, the drink stops being an isolated remedy and becomes part of a broader strategy of nutritional education and self-care. That's the point. The drink is powerful, but it potentiates when inserted into a favorable environment.
When the body receives foods that support its function, the result is faster and more lasting.
Now, Dr. Sam, need to ask the opposite. What habits or foods can interfere with the drink's action? Because I imagine some choices can sabotage the effect. Unfortunately, yes, and it's fundamental to talk about that in the next chapter. Dr. Hurricane, now that we know how to boost the effects of the drink with the right foods and combinations, it's time to talk about the other side of a coin. What should a person avoid if they really want to feel the benefits of the drink in glucose control? This is an essential part of the process. The drink can be very effective, but if consumed in an unfavorable context with habits that sabotage metabolism, the result will be limited. The first villain, without a doubt, is hidden sugar. It's present in foods that don't even seem sweet. Ready-made sauces, industrial breads, breakfast cereals, boxed juices, processed meats. These sugars go unnoticed and keep glucose elevated even without the person realizing it. So there's no point in drinking the beverage at night and at dinner, eating French bread with soda. The effect will be completely nullified. Exactly. Another important point is excess refined carbohydrates, like white pasta, polished rice, and white potatoes. These foods have a high glycemic index and are quickly converted to glucose. They should be consumed in moderation, preferably accompanied by fibers, good fats, and vegetables. And what about alcohol? Does it interfere with the drink's effect? Yes, especially if consumed at night. Alcohol overloads the liver, precisely the organ we want to protect, and profoundly alters glucose metabolism. Even in small amounts, it can cause reactive hypoglycemia followed by glucose spikes. If the person is seeking balance, it's better to avoid alcoholic drinks during the therapeutic drinks use period. In the habit of eating late at night, many people have dinner around 10 p.m. and go to sleep soon after. That is one of the worst habits for those seeking to control glucose. Eating late compromises digestion and activates the liver at the moment it should be resting. Moreover, it raises nighttime glucose and hinders the drink's action. The ideal is to have dinner by 8 p.m. at the latest and drink the beverage about an hour before sleeping. So the secret is simple but requires awareness. Avoid hidden sugar, reduce refined carbs, cut out alcohol, and respect the body's rhythm. Nothing miraculous but very effective. Exactly. The drink acts as an ally, but the metabolic environment needs to be clean and receptive. With small adjustments, results come naturally and consistently. Now that we know what to do and what to avoid, it's time for the big moment, the complete revelation of the traditional recipe. In the next chapter, can you share the step-by-step with great pleasure? We will reveal everything in the next chapter, Dr. Haruki. The most awaited moment for many has arrived, the recipe reveal. After so many chapters, understanding affects the ingredients, the habits that help and hinder. Now we want to know practically how to prepare this Japanese drink that has helped so many people regulate blood sugar. Of course, it's a pleasure to share. The recipe is simple, but as with everything in Eastern medicine, the secret is in the details. To prepare the drink, you will need 3 main ingredients: dried mulberry leaves, azuki beans, and yakun root. The first thing is to ensure the quality of these items. They should be organic and preferably fresh or dehydrated without preservatives. Got it. And how is it prepared? Is there a specific order? Yes. Start by putting 1 tablespoon of dried mulberry leaves into 300 milliliters of filtered water. Bring to a boil, then lower the heat, and let it infuse for 5 minutes. Meanwhile, in another pot, cook 1 tablespoon of azuki beans in 500 milliliters.
Water until soft but not falling apart.
This cooking takes about 20 minutes. Then strain the bean liquid and set aside. This will be the base of the drink. So we have 2 separate fusions, one of mulberry leaves and another with the azuki bean broth. And where does the yakun come in? Excellent question. The yakun root should be used raw, freshly grated to preserve the fructooligosaccharides. After the 2 infusions are lukewarm, mix 200 milliliters of mulberry tea with 150 milliliters of azuki bean broth and add 1 tablespoon of fresh grated yakun. Mix well and drink while still warm about an hour before sleeping. Simple and natural. It seems the flavor must be quite mild, right? Yes. It's a slightly sweet, earthy drink with herbal notes. No need to sweeten, but if someone wants to improve the taste, they can use a pinch of cinnamon or powdered ginger, which also have hypoglycemic properties. Do you recommend drinking this beverage every day? Yes, for best results, continuous use for at least 21 days, always at the same time, with a lighter stomach. Regularity is essential for the body to create a new metabolic reference. Wonderful. Now that we know the full recipe, in the next chapter 1 understand how to use it strategically. Is there an ideal time, frequency, or any specific recommendation to maximize the effects even more? Yes, and these details make all the difference. We will explore that in depth in the next chapter, Dr. Haraki. Now that we have the complete recipe, it's time to understand how to use it strategically. You've already mentioned that timing and consistency are fundamental, but what exactly does a need to do to get the maximum benefit from this practice? The first rule is regularity. The drink should be taken every day, preferably at the same time. This helps the body create a kind of metabolic memory. The best time is about an hour before sleeping with a relatively light stomach. If possible, dinner should occur by 8 p.m. and the drink be consumed by 9 p.m. This interval allows the body to absorb the compounds more efficiently. During rest, and how long should this consistency last, doctor? Is there a minimum period to start feeling the effects? Yes, we recommend at least 21 consecutive days, so the body starts to adapt and show results. But the best effects usually appear after 30 to 45 days. Of course, every organism is unique. Some people feel different in the first week, others need more time. The important thing is not to stop without reason. Is there any specific dietary guidance? Does the person need to follow a diet along with this, or is just avoiding the sabotaging foods we mentioned enough? Avoiding the sabotages is already a great start, but for those who want to speed up results, I recommend prioritizing low glycemic index foods such as leafy greens, legumes, whole grains, and fruits with little fructose. Avoiding glycemic spikes during the day contributes to the nighttime effect of the drink. Also, maintaining good hydration and practicing light activities like daily walks enhances the benefits even more. Are there any counterindications? People who shouldn't take the drink. The drink is safe for most people, but as always, it's important to consult a health professional before starting any new practice, especially if the person already uses hypoglycemic medications. In cases of frequent hypoglycemia, the drink should be monitored more carefully. It's also not indicated for small children or pregnant women without medical supervision. Got it, so it's simple but requires attention. Regularity, correct timing, conscious eating, and of course listening to one's own body. In the next chapter, I want to know what really happens in the body after 7 days of continuous use.
What changes can be noticed inside and out? That's one of the most rewarding parts of the process. Changes start subtly, but gain strength, day after day.
We will talk about that next, Dr. Hoig. Many people start a new health practice full of enthusiasm, but if they don't see results quickly, they end up giving up. So I want to be very direct. What can a person realistically expect in the first 7 days taking this drink every day? That's a fair expectation, and the first 7 days are indeed very important. Although we can't promise drastic changes in such a short time, what we observe in clinical practice are consistent signs that the body is starting to respond. The most common reports are deeper sleep, reduced craving for sweets at night, and a slight feeling of less bloating upon waking. So these are subtle changes, but they already indicate that something is reorganizing internally, and that by itself is very encouraging. Yes, one of the first responses of the body is in the intestine. The combination of fibers and prebiotic compounds from yakgon starts feeding beneficial bacteria, improving intestinal transit. Many people report more regular bowel movements and less abdominal discomfort. This is a great sign, as the intestine plays a fundamental role in regulating glucose and inflammation. In regarding glycemia, is it possible to notice any difference in blood sugar levels after 7 days? In cases where the person has very high glycemia or sharp spikes, it's possible to see a slight decrease in numbers. Patients who monitor at home with a glycometer report that the values start to stabilize. It's not a spectacular change yet, but it's the beginning of a new metabolic curve. Fasting glucose tends to drop a few points, and post-dinner spikes, for example, become milder, and mood disposition. Do they factor into this equation too? Definitely. When blood sugar stops swinging sharply, the brain responds with more balance. Anxiety levels tend to decrease. The person wakes up with more energy and starts noticing they're more centered. This directly impacts motivation to continue the habit. That's why the first 7 days are so important. They show that something is changing and give the breath to keep going. So, in a week, the body already starts showing small signs of regeneration, and this combined with discipline can lead to a full transformation. But before building unrealistic expectations, in the next chapter, one want to clear up a common doubt. Can diabetes be cured with teas, or is that a dangerous myth? Excellent point. It's essential to talk about this clearly and responsibly. We'll address this topic next, Dr. Hiroki. After so many chapters, it's clear that this drink has incredible potential to help control glucose. But there's a question we need to face seriously. Is it true that diabetes can be cured just with teas, or is that a myth that can put lives at risk? That's a very important question. The short answer is no. Teas by themselves do not cure diabetes. What they do and do very well is support the body in metabolic regulation, reduce inflammation, and improve insulin response. In many cases, especially early on or in prediabetes, it is possible to reverse the process with lifestyle changes. But that does not mean abandoning treatment or replacing medication on your own. So the problem is not the tea itself, but the way it is promoted, often with miraculous promises, right? Exactly. When we say a drink can help control glucose, we're talking about a tool within a bigger context, involving diet, sleep, exercise, and stress management. It should never be interpreted as an isolated cure, especially in advanced cases of type 2 or type 1 diabetes, which require constant medical attention and often insulin use. And have you ever seen patients who stop taking their medications trusting only natural solutions? Unfortunately,
some come to the clinic with complications precisely because they believed deceptive promises. That's why I always emphasize teas are allies, not substitutes. They can help reduce the need for medication over time, but this must be done
with professional supervision. Improvement must be documented with tests, and dosage reductions must be done safely. That responsible stance is fundamental, especially on such a sensitive topic, because what is at stake is not just blood sugar, but overall health. Correct. My role as a doctor is to show safe and effective ways to promote body balance. If a person takes the drink regularly, improves diet, sleeps better, and exercises, there's a real chance parameters improve significantly. But that does not mean they were cured by a tea, but rather that they adopted a new lifestyle with tea as part of that process. Perfect.
Now to close our episode, I want one last inspiring chapter. How to transform yourself with simple habits, combining Eastern wisdom with the routine of those living in the modern world. Can we? Of course.
Let's close with an invitation to change. Possible, accessible, and lasting. Dr. Haruki, throughout this conversation, it's clear that we're not just talking about a drink. We're talking about an invitation to transformation through simplicity, routine, and care for the body. To close, what message would you leave to those listening who truly want to take this first step? The first thing I would say is don't underestimate the power of small gestures. Many people expect a grand, quick, almost magical solution, but true change is born from consistency. A 20-minute walk, sleeping an hour earlier, drinking enough water, preparing your own food, and of course adopting practices like the drink we presented here. All of this, done every day, has a huge cumulative impact. And the most beautiful part of all this is that these habits are accessible. They don't require big investments, equipment, or cutting-edge technology. They require only a choice. Exactly. Eastern medicine teaches us that health is movement, it's flow. When we stay still, rigid, stuck in destructive patterns, the body starts to get sick. But when we regain the natural rhythm of life, with attention, respect, and simplicity, the body responds. And it responds with vitality, mental clarity, and disposition. The drink in this context is a symbol, a daily reminder that you are taking care of yourself. And that alone has immense value. The act of healing water, preparing calmly, is almost meditation in liquid form. Very well put. Instead of looking for shortcuts, I recommend that people seek rituals not as
obligation, but as a way of reconnection.
A tea before sleeping, a meal made calmly, the habit of walking barefoot in an art or watching the sunrise. These are simple things, but they regulate the nervous system, metabolism, and hormones. The body understands this care and thanks you. So in the end, the health we seek so much is not in miraculous formulas or instant solutions. It's in repeating what's essential and returning to basics, to the natural. Yes. And when the basics are practiced with intention and regularity, they become extraordinary. My mission is simply to translate this wisdom in a practical and accessible way. And I'm happy to do it here with you and with everyone listening. Dr. Baraki, what an honor to have this conversation with you, and to you who have followed us this far. The invitation is made. Transform your life starting with a simple habit, because your body, your mind, and your health deserve this care. And if you want to keep receiving the best health videos, subscribe to the channel, because it exists for only one reason: to make you a healthier person with better quality of life. Helping you is my mission. In the video now appearing on your screen, I reveal the natural drink that dries the fluids from your legs.
Click on the screen and check it out.